Hello and welcome again to our question and answer session. You're going to be with me, Munir Mustafa, as we continue with answering various questions which come in the biology examinations. Now, since in the last episode we looked at how questions would come during the introduction to biology type. Now we're going to go on further topics. So without wasting any time, let's start with the first question for this episode. Our first question says, how would you assist a person who has been bitten by a snake? A question like this really requires the common sense of the asked person, as it requires a person's ability to respond to a real life scenario, a real life situation. And asking this, it requires a person's knowledge on how to apply first aid to a snake bite victim. That is what this question really needs. So, as we've been asked, how would we react if a person has been bitten by a snake? So, the correct answer to answer this question would be, first of all, the victim should be calmed down. Many of us would ask the question, why should the victim be calmed down? This is because during times of stress, the heart pumps blood much faster inside the body than at normal times, as more adrenaline is released. The venom inside the blood system would actually reach more places quicker as it goes faster along with the blood, which is pumped very fast by the heart. So, calming the victim down is one of the most basic things that a person has to do. That's why they say you should be calmed down. Second of all, the bitten area should be immobilized, meaning the area which has been bitten, either the hand or the foot or the leg or the arm or the neck, it should not move. The reason why it should not move is because when it moves, there is a possibility that the venom would spread from the area which is affected to other areas. For instance, in the arm, if the person is bitten on the arm and he keeps moving the arm around, then there's a possibility that it could reach his heart, lungs, and other places where it could do much more damage. Third, the wound should be kept at heart level. Another question is, why should it be kept at heart level? The reason why it should be kept at heart level is because the heart pumps blood at a slower pace when it's at its level. As we all know, the gradient, for instance, we have water and we're trying to put it on a steep slope and a gentle slope. We know that water travels much faster on a steeper slope than on a gentle slope. That's why blood pumped from the heart at heart level flows much slower than blood pumped at another level, at a lower level than the heart. So it's very important to keep the wound at the heart level. That's why we're told to keep it at the heart level. Another one is, all jewelry and restrictive clothing should be removed from the injured area. Why should we do that? We should do that because we need to let the area free. It should get much more air. It should not be constricted. Why? Because while constricting an area which is wounded, there's a higher possibility that the infections could increase rather when it's left alone. The wound should be washed by using soap and water. Washing a snakebite victim's wound with soap and water ensures that the venom outside could be washed out easily and not harm the victim more or any person who comes into contact with the injured area of the victim. Ice should not be applied to the wound. As we all know, ice is a good remedy for bruises and other things, but placing it on a snake bite victim's area, which has been bitten by a snake, works inversely with how it should supposed to be working. So ice should not be applied to the wound, as it can increase the risk of the venom acting much faster on the body. The wound should not be cut. Cutting the wound could ensure that blood mixes with the wound and causes much more problems, much more infections to either the victim or to the one applying first aid to the victim. You should not try to remove venom from the wound. Removing venom from the wound either by sucking it out or cutting a part of the wound in order to let the venom out is very dangerous, as the venom can move directly from the victim to you. By sucking it out, there's a higher possibility that you could swallow the venom and it would harm you. So that's why a person should not try to remove the venom from the wound. And lastly, the injured person should be taken to the hospital as soon as possible. Why should a person do that? Because in reality, most snake bite victims have only about 5 minutes to live. So by helping them, by placing them to the hospital as soon as possible, increases the time in which they can be treated much faster while waiting and losing time. That's why it's very essential to place or to move the person to the hospital very, very quickly. Now, moving on to our next question. Name 5 items found in a first aid kit and state their uses. As we all know, a first aid kit is a kit which contains various items, all in order to give a person first aid before taking them to hospital. So when asked to name 5 items and state their uses, you can just draw a table like this. Well, one part you write the items, and another you write their uses, or you could just write the item, then write its use in front of it. So moving ahead, we have antiseptic, a plaster or adhesive bandage, we have liniment, painkillers, and petroleum jelly. Now going on to their uses. Antiseptic. We should ask ourselves, what's an antiseptic? An antiseptic is just some medicine which is used for cleaning wounds to kill germs. In Zanzibar we can call it iodine, we can call it spirit, but it's all an antiseptic because the main purpose of it is to clean the wounds in order to kill germs. As we all know, germs are everywhere. When a person gets wounded, there's a high possibility of getting infections due to germs. So using antiseptic on a wound kills the germs and reduces the infectious period to the person. A plaster or adhesive bandage. Its main job is to cover small wounds. Small cuts, grazes are all covered by using a plaster or adhesive bandage. So in a first aid kit, it's very common to see plasters in it. Moving on, we have liniment. A liniment's job is just to reduce muscle pain. As we all know, even in exercises, people can get muscle cramps, work, and other areas. So, in a first aid kit, there should be a sufficient amount of liniment in order to reduce the muscle pain which can be either reduced by massaging the area, using liniment, and other methods. We have painkillers. Painkillers are of many forms. We can have aspirin, Panadol, and so on and so on. The main job of these painkillers is to reduce the amount of pain a person is feeling. If someone has a headache, you can give them some Panadol or aspirin. It reduces the main job of these things is to reduce the pain which occurs in the head until a person can be moved to a hospital if a person is sick. And lastly, you have petroleum jelly. Petroleum jelly is used to soothe chapped skin. Now, people would ask themselves, what is chapped skin? Chapped skin is nothing but skin which is very rough. It can be due to diseases, or it can be due to the dryness a person has. But the main purpose of petroleum jelly is just to smooth down the skin. There are many types of things which are found also. There are bandages, there are gauzes. So there are many things which are found in a first aid kit. A person, when asked a question like this, can write any of those, not just the ones I've mentioned, but any other of those. Moving on to the third question, we are asked to show how a biology laboratory is different from a physics laboratory. As we all know, a laboratory is any special area where experiments can be conducted. Now, there are many types of laboratories. There are physics laboratories, chemistry laboratories, biology laboratories, and so on and so on. But we are asked to differentiate between a biology laboratory and a physics laboratory. Most people would just say they're both laboratories, places where we can conduct experiments. But you should know that a biology laboratory is very unique from other laboratories. How they're unique, that is what is needed in this question. So, a person answering this question should begin by saying a biology laboratory is different from a physics laboratory because a biology laboratory has, first of all, preserved specimen of organisms. So the first thing which is found are preserved specimens. Preserved specimens, what is a preserved specimen first? A preserved specimen is anything, any organism which has been preserved for further study in a biology laboratory. They can be preserved by many ways, by placing them in formaldehyde and placing them in other chemicals in such a way that they can last for a long time while being studied. These organisms can be mice, can be reptiles such as tortoises, lizards, snakes. They can be fish, and so on and so on. Any living organism which is preserved is called a preserved specimen inside a biology laboratory. Secondly, there are models which show different things. As we all know, in a biology laboratory, it's very common to see models of either the digestive system or models of many other things. In any biology laboratory, there must be models. It can be of the digestive system, it can be of the circulatory system, it can be of the reproductive system. But all in all, a biology laboratory must have models which depict various systems of the body. It should have special apparatuses such as dissecting kits, hand lenses, microscopes, and so on and so on. A biology laboratory works with many organisms. It can work with small organisms such as bacteria, protozoas. There are microorganisms which are very small, unicellular organisms. Most of them are too small to be seen with the naked eye. So a biology laboratory has microscopes which help which help people to view them. Also, it can have dissecting kits. What is a dissecting kit? A dissecting kit is just a special apparatus kit which has a main purpose of dissecting organisms. You can dissect frogs, mice, and other organisms by using a dissecting kit, which has many other apparatuses. A dissecting kit is just a word for the whole box containing the apparatuses used for dissecting. That's what a dissecting kit. There are charts with various diagrams. For instance, in a biology laboratory, it's very common to see a chart showing the skeleton, a chart showing how the ecological system goes, a chart showing many things. But that is one of the things which are found in biology laboratories. There are aquaria. Most biology labs, if not all of them, have aquaria, which are special areas built for keeping aquatic animals, meaning animals which live in water, such as fish. In placing live organisms such as fish, it's better to place them in aquaria which are environments similar to where they were found originally. Also, there are cages. These cages can be of many types. They can be a glass box type cage, it can be a cage with bars, but the main purpose of cages are to keep live specimens. For example, you can keep rabbits, you can keep mice, you can keep many organisms while in cages for further observation while alive. Now, looking at these things, we can see that a biology laboratory has different things rather than a physics laboratory. A physics laboratory, you can find pendulum bulbs, you can find resistors, you can find rheostats, but in a biology laboratory, you are sure to find these things and many other things. So that's how we can answer a question like this. Moving ahead on question 4, there's another question which shows which actually needs a person's attention. Question number 4 says, Muhammad has some plastic waste bottles that he does not need to use. Which is the best method of waste disposal that Muhammad needs to use? In a question like this, like the first question, it really needs a person's common sense, a person to ask themselves, what would you do if you were in Muhammad's place? We are asked to put ourselves in Muhammad's shoes. For example, you and me, we are Muhammad, we have plastic bottles, we don't need to use them. What should we do to dispose of them? And by asking which is the best method, this means the method in which would have the least disadvantages, such as, for instance, asking ourselves in methods of waste disposal, should he incinerate the plastic bottles, meaning burning them? The answer would be no, because burning them could release toxic gases in which could harm people in the area. Should he put them in a landfill? A landfill is a good place to put them, but if the landfill is filled, many animals could die for ingesting those plastic bottles, and children could get hurt. So, the answer is the best method of waste disposal that Muhammad should use is the recycling method. Now we could ask ourselves, what is recycling? Recycling is just the reusing and remaking of unwanted wastes into usable wastes. This could be made from plastic bottles, old tires, waste papers, and so on and so on. For instance, we can use plastic bottles, we can melt them and create new bottles. We can use old tires and make new tires from them. We can use waste papers and create either toilet paper or even writing paper. But recycling means making something from unusable to usable. That is recycling. So the method in which Muhammad should best use is the recycling method. Now, going on to our last question, we are told to define the following terms. We have, first of all, a biohazardous waste. First, we should look and see. As we all know, in the first episode, we talked about the word bio, in which bio meant life. So looking at this, we can just say, we can see that there's the word bio in it and the word hazardous. We could ask ourselves, why? What is a biohazardous waste? As we all know, waste products are any unwanted materials. So a biohazardous waste, by taking the word bio, which means life, and hazardous, which means dangerous, we can see it means literally a danger to life. But its definition, we can just say it's a type of waste which can cause infections and diseases. Most of the time, a biohazardous waste can be also known as clinical waste, wastes in which are found from hospitals. For example, soiled gloves, there used syringes, there used sheets from the victims themselves, the patients, from the patients. So we can just say that biohazardous wastes are the types of wastes which could cause infections and diseases if they are ingested or if they are used by any other animal after being thrown away. So the best method of, and a bonus answer here, you could just say the best method of disposing of these materials is through incineration. But that is another part. Second of all, we have biodegradable waste. We know that bio means life and degradable means broken down. So biodegradable wastes means are the types of wastes which can be broken down by any organisms. For instance, we have those vegetables, meats, any animal products. For instance, their skin, their meat, their bones, which can be decomposed by living bacteria and other organisms, are called biodegradable waste. So that is what a biodegradable waste. As we all know, by defining it, we can say it's just the type of waste which can be decomposed by bacteria and other organisms. We have incineration. Incineration just is the complete burning of waste in order to destroy it completely. As we can see, as we said first, we talked about biohazardous wastes, but in reality, incineration is just the complete burning of something. That is, you're burning it until it's completely destroyed. That is what incineration is. And it's very common to be used in hospitals and other places in which the hospital wastes are known to be very dangerous. So the best way of getting rid of them is through incineration. We have recycling. We can ask ourselves, what is recycling? Recycling is simply the turning of waste materials into useful products. This can be used as, and this is seen as one of the best methods of waste disposal. As you reuse something, you just make it usable again. For instance, taking plastic bottles, empty plastic bottles, creating new plastic bottles, taking plastic bags, creating new plastic bags, taking old tires, creating new tires, things like that, taking waste papers, creating new paper. Recycling just means reusing it. Recycle, from the word re meaning again, and cycle meaning something which has no end, which returns to the original point, from the word circle. So that is what's recycling. And finally, we have waste disposal. Many people would ignore a question like this. Many people would ignore the definition of the word waste disposal because they think it's not important. But it is very important for any biology student, when asked a question like this, to be able to know what is waste disposal. Putting it in your head, we know a waste is anything which is not needed. But disposing of something means just taking it away, throwing it away. It has a broader meaning. Not only taking it away and throwing it away, but it also means removing something. So we can just say waste disposal is the collection, transportation, processing, reusing, and reusing and other things which help us to get rid of wastes. So all things, for beginning from the collection of waste, from the transportation of waste, from the processing, meaning incineration, putting it in landfills, in other words, and reusing it, for instance, recycling it, and other things which helps us to get rid of waste, is known as waste disposal. I would like to talk to you more about other questions, but we should stop here for today. You are with me, Munir Mustafa, as we were continuing on the biology questions. So thank you, and I'll see you next time.